Hey guys, it's Jessica and welcome back to another Kindred Stamps video. Today I'm using the Slay stamp set, and this one has been a lot of fun to work with. I really enjoyed drawing on my last card that I used with this one. I'll have that one linked below. I decided to go a little bit out of my realm and try a case card design. And case card just means clean and simple card, or clean and simple card design. And that is a design that I don't use often, but they are kind of essential sometimes. I'll go over that a bit more a little later, but right now I am stamping this girl character. She has a stake in her hand, like she's gonna stab somebody. And I'm going to stamp her using some Copic friendly black ink. This is the one that I'm using now. The one that I have been using, it's a little bit dried out. It was just a little cube ink, and I used it too much. So I'm having to order another one, but this one is also just as good. There's a lot of them that are basically the same and they all work really well. And I'm stamping her on Neenah Solar White 80-pound cardstock. I'm going to stamp her a couple times to get a nice black image, and then I'm going to start some Copic coloring. I'll have the caps to where you can see all the colors, so you can kind of follow along if you like a certain color combination that I use. And I'll also have the colors listed below and on my blog channel, basically everywhere, just in case you want to know the exact colors that I used on this character. But a few things that I wanted to talk about with a case card design are, what does that actually mean? A case card is just a clean and simple card design, so that you're basically limiting what you put on your card front. So one kind of standard to go by is one focal point. So this girl character that I am coloring up, she is going to be my focal point for this whole card. And she isn't a very large character, but by adding a lot of detail with Copics, and also I'm going to be using some Prismacolor pencils a little later, will help make her visually interesting, so her size won't really matter. You could also use a small stamp image and just stamp out a bunch of those images in like a cluster, and that whole area can be your focal point. Another one is Wide Open Spaces, which I believe is a song, but in this context I'm talking about white area. So on my card front that you probably saw on the thumbnail and at the beginning of this video, has a lot of white area, a lot of blank area. I usually lean more towards cards with neutral colors, so white, craft, black, even like a soft navy color would be a good neutral for a case card. But really I've seen all types of colors used on case cards, so you don't need to limit yourself so much on just using white cardstock. Get creative with that, but just make sure there is a lot of blank area around your focal point. Another standard is minimal layers. So basically what this means is not a lot of dimension. For this card I will be using some foam squares to pop up my character, but that will be the only dimension on this card. Another standard that I find a little difficult to go by is little to no embellishments. I love to add Nuvo drops, sequins, a lot of ink blending on my background. I love all that stuff. I love playing with all that stuff. But with a case card, you really need to tone it down and just let that focal point be the star. So again, for this card, the girl character will be the focal point. And for embellishments, I did add a few stakes, like wooden stakes, kind of like the one she's holding in her hand, off to the right of the sentiment. And I just doodled those in. Other than that, there's no other embellishments. Another one that I like to go by, and not necessarily is this a standard for all case cards, but I like to keep my colors to a minimum. So a simple colorway. As you can see for this girl, I have colored her. She has the blonde hair and the light skin tone, but I'm keeping her clothes pretty minimal. A neutral pants and shoes, and then a bright pop of pink for her top. So that'll tie all that in. Instead of going in with a different color for the sentiment, I'm going to be using different tones of that pink color to simplify the whole colorway for this card. So since this character is going to be the focal point, I really want to make her a bit detailed, and I'm going to be adding a lot of detail to her face. Honestly, I think I was watching some makeup videos while coloring this, so my makeup artist kind of came out a little bit, but I added a bunch of blush to her cheeks to add some color and to go with that pink tone that I'm playing with. And then I also added eyelashes, some eyebrows. Eyebrows are very important. And then I added a bit of color. I think it's just gray, like a light C3, C1 gray color to her upper eyelids behind the eyelashes. I had a hard time trying to get her eyebrows the same. They're definitely not twins. They're maybe close relatives, second cousins. I wouldn't even say they're sisters. So I added a bit of shading also with a Prismacolor pencil. I believe that is the dark gray. I think it's a 90% warm gray color. But I just used that to shade around on her top and a little bit on her pants also. And now I'm going to fussy cut her out and then ink the edges. So maybe you're asking yourself, why should I do a case card, Jessica? Clean and simple is really not my style, and it really isn't mine either. Like I said, I like to kind of play around with everything. A couple good reasons to try out a case card is they are easy to replicate. I also like to use case cards for practicing color combinations because I like to try to limit my colorways so much with a case card. So I don't normally play around with pink. That's kind of one of my things that I noticed for 2018 was I don't use a lot of pink or purples. So I have been trying to use more of those. And this was a good way to try out different pink tones and kind of combine some inks that maybe I haven't used in a while together and get a feel for them and kind of reinvigorate the reason why I had bought those inks in the first place. Also, case cards are just really good for trying out a new technique or maybe an old technique that you haven't done in a while. This one, I guess I could say that my technique was the ombre stamping. I really like how it looks on this card. So speaking of the sentiment, since I'm going into that portion of this video for the Ombre Sentiment, so I have just a couple tips on how I went about doing this sentiment. I laid my character down on a blank card base. This is a Neenah 110-pound card base that I have, and it's a top fold. I lined her up where I thought I would like her on the front of my card. I didn't adhere her down because I am going to pop her up. I didn't want that getting in the way of the lid of the stamp platform. I used my darkest pink color for the first stamping of this sentiment, and I do double stamp all of these colors. So after I got that stamped down, I'm going to move the cardstock, this note card, up a 1/2 inch, and I am actually just judging where I wanted that. It just turns out that a 1/2 inch worked perfectly for this sentiment stamp. So after I move the cardstock up a 1/2 inch, I can go ahead and stamp my second pink color. This is a medium pink that I have. And then I can move that cardstock up another 1/2 inch and stamp the lightest. And you get this from darkest to lightest ombre. If you're really good, you could probably do this with a stamp block too. I just have never been that talented or that steady. So using a stamp platform like this one has really helped using these techniques. I thought it looked just a little off-centered, so I added these wooden stakes on the right-hand side of the sentiments. I've been drawing on my cards a little more than I used to, so this is kind of a fun way for me to embellish. And I thought that tied in really well with the character because she is holding a wooden stake. And I also like how it has a bit of contrast of that darker color on that right-hand side. So it kind of draws your eye all the way down. So the last reason why it might be good if you try a case card design is Maybe you bought a stamp set and it has all these great characters or critters, whatever it is, and it has a bunch of sentiments to go along with it, but you're just not sure what to do with it. Maybe you feel a little overwhelmed by the whole stamp set. Try out this card design that I just did. Limit your colorway, do an ombre stamp technique, add your details all to your focal point, and keep a lot of white area, and see where that takes you. Maybe by limiting your creativity just a little bit on one card, it'll open up a bunch of new and fantastic ideas. Alright, you guys, that's it for me. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. I appreciate you, and I will see you in the next one. Meh, meh.